They put me in the back corner of the church like I was some old piece of furniture they hoped nobody would notice. I sat there in my simple blue dress, watching everyone celebrate while they whispered about poor old Granny Betty. Little did they know this poor old granny was sitting on $20 million. If you're watching this story, please tell me what country you're from in the comments below. What that handsome young man didn't realize was that this quiet grandmother had been hiding some very big secrets. The wedding day started so beautifully. I picked out my nicest outfit, a soft blue dress that made me look like any other grandmother. Nothing fancy or expensive. My hair was done at the local salon, simple and neat. When I got to the church, my granddaughter Sarah gave me a quick hug. "Granny, you look nice," she said, already rushing around with wedding stuff, like a pat on the head for being good enough to attend. I watched my sweet Sarah walk down the aisle in her beautiful white dress. She looked like an angel, so happy and glowing. But as more people arrived, I could see how things really were. Jake's family came in like they owned the place. His mother Linda wore diamonds that sparkled like stars. She hugged all the important people but looked right through me like I wasn't even there. When I showed the usher my seat number, he looked confused. "Table 15. That's in the back corner, ma'am." Table 15 was behind a huge plant that blocked my view of everything. I was hidden away like they were embarrassed of me. From behind that giant plant, I watched the wedding happen in the mirror on the wall. There I was, Betty Thompson, 75 years old, pushed into the corner like yesterday's newspaper. The wedding was lovely. Sarah looked perfect walking down the aisle, and Jake looked handsome in his expensive suit. But during the party after, I watched Jake talk to people. He had different ways of acting. Big smiles for rich people, polite nods for useful people, and he completely ignored anyone who looked poor or unimportant. "Mrs. Thompson," a voice said behind me. I turned to see Jake himself wearing his biggest, fakest smile. "Isn't this just amazing?" he said, waving his hand around like he made the whole wedding happen. "You must be so proud of Sarah." "Oh, yes. I'm just bursting with joy," I said sweetly. "Though, I have to say, the view from back here is quite interesting." He either didn't hear the sharpness in my voice or didn't care. I was hoping we could spend some time together soon, get to know each other better. "Oh, nice. Most people usually do that before marrying into the family. But I suppose everyone has their own way of doing things." That made his smile freeze for just a second. Just a tiny moment, but I caught it. "I was thinking dinner this week. Just you and me. I have some ideas about how we could help each other as family." Help each other. That sounded suspicious. "Well, I do enjoy a good dinner conversation. How about Thursday?" "Perfect. I know a place downtown. Very quiet. Good for important talks." Important talks about what? I wondered. My boring life, my small pension. "I can hardly wait," I said, fanning myself with my napkin. As he walked away to talk to richer people, I caught my reflection in that mirror, a gray-haired woman in simple clothes, sitting alone behind a plant. Someone who looked like she counted every penny and worried about paying bills. Exactly what I'd been pretending to be for 3 whole years. During the father-daughter dance, I quietly went to the bathroom. In that fancy mirror, I fixed my lipstick and practiced my harmless old grandmother look. When I came back to my corner, Jake was talking to an older couple, Mr. and Mrs. Chen. They were hanging on his every word like he was telling them the secrets of the universe. "Mrs. Thompson," he said when he saw me sit down, "I'm really looking forward to Thursday." "So am I, dear." "Oh, my." As Sarah threw her bouquet and the party ended, I watched Jake work the room like a salesman. He clearly had big plans cooking in that handsome head of his. Too bad for Jake. This old grandmother was about to show him that sometimes the quietest people are the most dangerous. The days after the wedding crawled by like a snail. Sarah called me every day talking about how wonderful married life was and how thoughtful Jake was being. He's always thinking about our future. Granny always talking about security and making sure we're safe. Security. That word kept coming up in our talks like a broken record. How lovely, sweetheart. It's so romantic when a husband thinks about money all the time. What do you mean, Granny? Nothing, dear. Just that planning for the future is very romantic. Sarah missed my sarcasm completely, which was probably good. Wednesday felt like the longest day of my life. I spent it doing normal grandmother things, watering plants, reading books, and wondering what my charming new grandson-in-law wanted to talk about over expensive food. Thursday evening came like a storm cloud. I dressed for my part as a simple grandmother, plain black dress that said, "I don't have much money," and my mother's old pearl necklace to look respectable. The restaurant Jake picked was one of those fancy places where they probably charge you just for sitting down. The kind of place where the waiters look at you like you don't belong there. Jake was already there when I arrived, looking like a successful businessman. "Betty!" He jumped up like I was royalty. "You look wonderful." "Thank you, dear. This place is certainly impressive." And it was impressive. All right, the kind of impressive that makes you feel small and poor. We ordered wine. He picked a bottle that probably cost more than my weekly groceries and settled in for what he thought would be an easy conversation. "So," he said, spinning his wine glass like he was on TV. "How are you handling life all by yourself?" "Oh, just fine. 75 years of practice makes most things seem easy." Of course. But doesn't it get scary sometimes? That big house, all those bills to pay, making important decisions alone. He was fishing for information like a man trying to catch a whale with a safety pin. Harold always said, I worried too much about everything. So I've learned to just take things one day at a time. He laughed. That fake business laugh that probably worked on investors and trusting old people. That's sweet. But seriously, don't you worry about practical things. Money, legal stuff, people who might try to trick you. There it was, the real reason for this expensive dinner. Should I be worried about something specific, Jake? Not worried exactly, but prepared. You know how complicated life can be, especially for someone in your situation. My situation, like being a grandmother with some kind of disease. And what situation is that? He leaned in closer, using that quiet voice men use when they want to explain something to a simple woman. Well, living alone, making big decisions without help, being vulnerable to people who might not care about you the way family does. Vulnerable to people like him, I figured. How thoughtful of you to worry about me. I actually know a lawyer who helps people in situations like yours. Situations like mine. How nicely he put it. What kind of help are we talking about? He reached into his jacket like a magician pulling out a rabbit. Out came a folder full of papers. Just some simple paperwork. Nothing scary. Just protection in case you ever need help making important choices. I opened that folder like it might bite me. Power of attorney papers, medical decision forms, financial control documents, complete control, wrapped up in pretty words about loving care. This is quite a lot of paperwork. My lawyer handles these things all the time. He knows exactly what older people need. Older people like we were all the same. How interesting. And Sarah knows about this helpful plan. She thinks it's brilliant. Really, Betty? We just want to make sure you're protected from anyone who might take advantage of your kind heart. My kind heart? The boy had done his homework. Protected from who exactly? Oh, you know, dishonest repairmen, sketchy investment people, relatives who might suddenly become very interested in your money. Relatives who might suddenly become interested. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. How wise of you to think of such problems. It's just common sense. These things are easier to handle before problems start. Before problems like me keeping control of my own life. I see. And this needs to be done quickly because timing is important with these things. The longer you wait, the more questions people might ask about your ability to make good decisions. My ability. He was already setting up reasons to call me too old and confused to make my own choices. "Well?" I said, closing the folder and putting my hands on top like I was blessing it. "This definitely needs some thinking." Relief washed over his face like he just won the lottery. "Of course. Take your time, though. My lawyer did say it would be smart to act quickly. Quick action before I had time to think or talk to anyone with a working brain. I'll want to talk to my own lawyer first." His smile flickered like a candle in the wind. "Your own lawyer?" "Oh, yes. I know it seems silly, but I'd feel better having someone explain it in simple terms." "Betty, I really think we should just get this done tonight. These things work better when you don't overthink them. Don't overthink them before I realized I was being robbed. I'm sure your notary will understand that big decisions shouldn't be rushed." "My what?" "Your notary? You brought one, didn't you? You seem so prepared for everything else." The fake smile fell off his face completely. "How did you know about the notary?" "Lucky guess. You seem like someone who plans ahead." Jake stared at me for a long moment, probably trying to figure out if I was really that simple, or if I was onto his game. "Of course," he said finally. "Take all the time you need." But his eyes said something different. His eyes said he was done playing nice with the harmless old grandmother. Too bad for Jake. This harmless old grandmother was just getting started. The weekend passed quietly, but I could feel Jake's impatience buzzing through the phone, like an angry bee. Sarah called twice, both times casually asking about that helpful paperwork Jake showed you. "Still thinking about it, sweetheart." Mom says he knows so much about legal stuff. Legal stuff like stealing was just another item on his resume. Monday morning brought a phone call that proved everything I suspected about Jake's true nature. "Betty, it's Jake. I hope you've had time to think about our talk." "Oh, I've been thinking about little else." "Great. I was hoping we could meet again this week. I have more information that might help make things clearer." "More information? Probably more lies." "How thoughtful. Same restaurant." "Actually, I was thinking somewhere more private. Maybe your house. I could bring some papers that would be easier to look at in a comfortable place. My house where he could pressure me without anyone watching." "What kind of papers?" "Just some examples of how these arrangements have helped other families. Success stories." Success stories about old people who'd given up their freedom to charming crooks. That sounds interesting. Wednesday evening. Perfect. Around 7. Wednesday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the days preparing for the biggest performance of my life. If Jake wanted to play games in my house, I'd make sure I won. Wednesday evening, I got ready for battle. Simple gray dress, no fancy jewelry. The perfect costume for a woman about to spring a very expensive trap. Jake arrived exactly at 7, carrying his briefcase and wearing his most trustworthy smile. "Betty, thank you for letting me come over. I know this can all feel overwhelming." "Oh, I'm not overwhelmed at all. Actually, I find it quite educational." He sat down in my living room like he owned the place, spreading papers across my coffee table like a card dealer. I brought some examples of families who've used these arrangements. I think you'll find them reassuring. "How thoughtful. But before we talk about other people, I'm curious about your story." "My story?" "Yes, your background. What makes you qualified to manage other people's lives?" His confident look flickered like a light bulb about to burn out. "Well, I have business experience." "What kind of business?" "Investment stuff. Financial planning." "For which company?" "I work for myself now." "And before that?" "Different jobs in finance." "Different jobs. How wonderfully vague. How long have you been advising elderly people about their money?" "I wouldn't call it advising. More like protective planning." "And how many elderly people have you protected?" "A few families who needed guidance." "Guidance they asked for, or guidance you told them they needed?" The room got very quiet, except for my old clock ticking on the wall. "Betty, I think you might be misunderstanding what I'm trying to do." "Oh, I understand perfectly. What I'm curious about is your methods. My methods for finding vulnerable targets, for gaining their trust, for convincing them to sign away their rights. His mask started cracking like old paint. You're making serious accusations. I'm making serious observations about a serious criminal who made a serious mistake. What mistake? I smiled, thinking of every lesson Harold had taught me about reading people, assuming I was just another helpless grandmother. Betty, I think you're confused. I'm not confused at all. I know exactly what you're trying to do. The question is, do you know what I'm about to do? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I've been recording this conversation. I'm talking about the private detective who's been watching you. I'm talking about the police report that's already been filed. The color left his face like water down a drain. You can't prove anything. I can prove everything. Your money problems, your debts, your history of targeting old women. All of it. That's impossible, is it? Tell me, Jake, how much do you owe to those gambling websites? He froze like a statue. How do you know about that? I know everything about you, including the fact that you're not my first admirer. What do you mean? I mean, you're not the first charming young man who's tried to steal from me. The difference is this time I was ready. Ready? How? I stood up, my voice getting quiet and dangerous. Ready to destroy anyone who tries to take what my husband spent 50 years building. You don't understand. I'm desperate. You need to leave before I call the police. Betty, please. We can work something out. The only thing we're working out is whether you leave on your own or in handcuffs. Jake gathered his papers with shaking hands, his perfect plan falling apart like a house of cards in a hurricane. This isn't over. Yes, I said that thinking of Harold's secrets waiting in the basement safe. It is. After he left, I poured myself a glass of Harold's best wine and sat in my quiet kitchen. Tomorrow I'd go to the basement and open that old safe. Tomorrow I'd learn exactly what weapons my husband had left me. Tonight I'd enjoy the look of panic in Jake's eyes when he realized he'd picked the wrong grandmother to mess with. Some hunters learn too late that sometimes the prey has bigger teeth than they do. Thursday morning, I stood at my basement door, holding Harold's key, my heart beating fast with worry and excitement. For 3 years, I'd avoided this moment, too sad after Harold's death to face whatever secrets he'd hidden down there. Jake had just given me a very good reason to be brave. The basement smelled like old books, and Harold's aftershave, like he'd just been down there yesterday. His desk was exactly as he'd left it. Crossword puzzles, coffee-stained papers, the reading glasses he'd worn for 30 years. The safe was hidden behind a fake wall panel that looked like part of the concrete. Harold had always been smarter than he let people think. Inside, I found papers that made my hands shake like leaves. Bank statements showing accounts I'd never heard of. Investment papers going back decades. Legal documents setting up trusts and protections I didn't know existed. And at the bottom, a letter in Harold's familiar handwriting that changed everything I thought I knew about my life. My dearest Betty, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and someone is trying to take advantage of your good heart. I'm sorry I never told you about the money. $20 million all protected and completely yours. I lived simply so we could die rich. And I hid our wealth, so you'd be safe from people exactly like whoever made you open this safe. $20 million worth. I sat down hard in Harold's old chair, the numbers swimming in front of my eyes. 20 million. More money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. The letter continued. There's a business card in this envelope from Margaret Davis. She's handled everything since I got sick. She knows about the threats you might face, and she has instructions to help you fight back. Don't let anyone steal what I spent 50 years building for you. Use every penny if you have to. Make them sorry they ever messed with my wife. I found Margaret's card and called immediately. Davis Law Office. This is Betty Thompson. I believe my husband Harold set up something for me to help. Mrs. Thompson, I've been waiting 3 years for your call. Can you come in today? How soon? How about right now? Margaret Davis's office was nothing like the scary lawyer offices on TV. Bright modern, with family pictures mixed in with law degrees. She was about 40 with kind eyes and a handshake that could crush walnuts. "Betty, please sit. Harold told me this day would come." "What day?" "The day someone would try to trick you into giving up your rights." She spread papers across her desk, trust documents, investment records, legal protections I'd never imagined. "Your husband was incredibly smart. He predicted someone would approach you within 3 years of his death, probably through family trying to control what they thought were small savings. But they're not small. No, they're not. $20 million completely protected in a trust that can't be touched. Even if someone got power of attorney, even if they convinced a judge you were too old to make decisions, they still couldn't access a penny." I leaned back, feeling like I was seeing the world clearly for the first time in years. "So Jake can't touch any of it." "Jake can't touch a dime. But more importantly, you now have the resources to make sure he never tries this again with anyone else." "What do you mean?" Margaret smiled with something that looked almost scary. "I mean, we're going to destroy him so completely that other criminals will tell stories about what happens when you mess with the wrong grandmother." "How?" "Criminal charges for attempted fraud, civil lawsuits, and we're going to investigate every financial move he's made for the past 10 years. "Is that legal?" "Perfectly legal. When someone tries to steal from you, we get to find out everything about their crimes." "Will we find out about other people he's hurt?" "Oh, yes. Men like Jake don't work alone. There's usually a whole network of people targeting elderly victims. We're going to find them all." I thought about Sarah, about her tears when she talked about Jake's money problems, about how perfectly he'd fooled both of us. What happens to my granddaughter's marriage? That's Sarah's choice, but she'll make it with complete information instead of lies, and the money stays secret until I decide otherwise. The beauty of Harold's plan is that you can live exactly as you have been, or you can buy a mansion tomorrow. Your choice. I gathered up the trust papers, feeling like I was holding lightning in my hands. "When do we start fighting back?" "We already started. The moment you called me, Jake stopped being a hunter and became prey." As I drove home, I couldn't stop thinking about Harold's letter. He'd known this would happen. He'd prepared for it. He'd given me weapons for a war I didn't even know was coming. That evening, Sarah called. "Granny, Jake seems really upset about something. He won't tell me what happened when you two met." We had a very interesting conversation about his plans for my future. "What kind of plans?" "The kind that assume I'm too stupid to protect myself." "Granny, he's just trying to help." "Sweetheart, there are things about your husband you don't know. Things about our family, money you don't know." "What things?" "Tomorrow I think it's time you learned the truth." "What truth?" "The truth about what your grandfather really left me, and the truth about what I'm going to do to anyone who tries to steal it." The silence on the phone was so long, I thought she'd hung up. "Granny, you're scaring me." "Good. It's about time someone in this family was properly scared." After Sarah hung up, I sat in my kitchen holding Harold's letter, thinking about $20 million and the war it was about to buy me. Jake thought he was hunting a helpless grandmother. He was about to learn he'd wandered into the den of a very rich, very angry lion. And lions don't negotiate with thieves. They eat them. Friday morning came with Margaret's phone call and the sweet promise of professional revenge. "I found a prosecutor who specializes in elder fraud. She wants to meet with you today." "How soon?" "This afternoon. She's very interested in Jake's case." "Why?" "Because she thinks he's part of a bigger operation. If we can prove that, we can shut down the whole network." The afternoon meeting was at the prosecutor's office. I met Linda Park, a sharp-eyed woman who looked like she ate criminals for breakfast. "Mrs. Thompson, tell me about Jake's approach." I told her everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every carefully planned trick Jake had used on me and Sarah. "Classic pattern," she said, making notes. Family connection, financial pressure, urgency to sign papers. He's done this before. How can you tell? Because amateurs make mistakes. Jake knew exactly which buttons to push, which legal words to use, how to structure the timeline. This is his job. So what do? We set a trap, make him think he's one, then catch everything he does next. Margaret leaned forward. What kind of trap? Mrs. Thompson calls him, says she's changed her mind, wants to sign the papers. We record everything, his response, his instructions, his timeline. Then we arrest him the moment he brings that notary to witness the signing. I smiled, thinking of Jake's desperation, his gambling debts, his absolute certainty that he'd fooled a helpless grandmother. When do we spring this trap? Monday. That gives us the weekend to set up recording equipment and coordinate with police. Saturday. I spent the day preparing for the performance of my life, practicing my grateful grandmother voice, rehearsing my lines about feeling safer with Jake's protection. Sunday brought Sarah looking worried and confused. Granny, Jake's been acting strange. He keeps asking about Grandpa's money, about whether you might have hidden accounts. What did you tell him? That I don't know anything about your finances. But Granny, why is he so interested? Because he needs money more desperately than you know. How desperately? Desperately enough to steal it from his wife's grandmother. Sarah stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You really think he's trying to steal from you? I know he is. The question is, are you ready to see proof? What kind of proof? The kind that will end your marriage but save your grandmother. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Finally. Show me. Monday morning, I called Jake with the performance of my lifetime. Jake, it's Betty. I've been thinking about what you said. Oh. His voice was trying to sound calm, but I could hear the excitement underneath. I think you're right. I do need protection. I'd like to move forward with those papers. The relief in his voice was so obvious it was almost funny. That's wonderful, Betty. When would work for you? As soon as possible. This weekend made me realize how vulnerable I really am. Perfect. I can have everything ready by this afternoon. This afternoon. I let confusion creep into my voice. Isn't that very fast? These things work best when handled quickly. I'll bring my notary. We'll get everything signed and you'll be completely protected. Protected from him, he meant. Well, if you think it's best, I do. Let's say 3 hours at your house. 3 hours sounds perfect. After I hung up, Margaret nodded from her spot monitoring the recording equipment. He took the bait completely. Now what? Now we wait for him to hang himself. At exactly 3, Jake arrived with his briefcase, his notary, and his most trustworthy smile. Hidden cameras caught everything as he spread papers across my coffee table. Betty, I can't tell you how happy I am that you're taking this step. I realized you were right about the dangers. An old woman like me needs guidance. Exactly. Now, these papers will give Sarah and me the authority to protect your interests. All of my interests. All of them. Financial decisions, medical choices, living arrangements. Everything. Living arrangements. He was already planning to put me somewhere out of the way. And this needs to be notarized today because delays create complications. The sooner we protect you, the better. I picked up the pen, letting my hand shake slightly. This is quite overwhelming. I know it seems like a lot, but trust me, this is the best thing for everyone. Trust him. The man who was stealing my life while promising to protect it. I signed the first page, then paused. Jake, can I ask you something? Of course. What happens to my money after I sign this? Your money will be professionally managed. No more worrying about bills or investments. By who? By people with experience. People who understand these things. People like you. People like Sarah and me. Yes. I signed the second page. And if I change my mind later? Well, that would depend on your mental state at the time. These arrangements are designed to be permanent. Permanent like a prison sentence. I see. I signed the third page. Jake, there's something I should mention. What's that? I think there might be more money than you realize. His eyes lit up like Christmas morning. More money. Harold may have had some accounts I didn't know about. Hidden investments, maybe? How much more money, Betty? And there it was. The greed, the desperation, the final proof that this was never about protecting me. I'm not sure. Maybe a lot? Jake's hands were shaking now. How much is a lot? Well, I said, setting down the pen without signing the last page. That's where things get interesting. What do you mean? I smiled, thinking of 20 million and the trap we just sprung. I mean, you're under arrest, Jake. You have the right to remain silent. Police officers came out of their hiding spots as Jake's face went white with shock. You can't. I can, I did. And now you're going to learn what happens to criminals who pick the wrong grandmother to mess with as they put handcuffs on him. I heard him yelling about unfairness and legal problems. But all I heard was the sound of justice being served with a $20 million side of revenge. The news broke that evening. Local man arrested in elder fraud sting. Jake's arrest was on every TV channel, his face showing shock and anger. Sarah called, crying. Granny, what have you done? I've protected myself from your husband's plan to steal my independence and money. But the arrest, the charges, this will ruin him. Good. That was the point. How can you be so cold? How can you defend a man who was planning to rob your grandmother? Sarah came over an hour later. Her eyes red from crying. I sat her down and played the recording of Jake's confession. Every greedy word, every calculated lie, every moment he'd shown his true nature. He was going to put me in a nursing home, sweetheart. He was going to steal everything your grandfather left me and convince everyone I was too old to object. But he loves me. He loves what he thought you could get him. There's a difference. I showed her the financial records Margaret had found, the gambling debts, the fake businesses, the systematic targeting of elderly women. This isn't his first time, Sarah. You're married to a professional criminal. She stared at the evidence, her face going through denial, anger, and heartbreak. What am I supposed to do now? Whatever you want, but you'll do it knowing the truth, not believing lies. Tuesday brought Jake's father angry and demanding. Betty, you've destroyed my son's life over a misunderstanding. I've exposed your son's criminal behavior. There's a difference. He was trying to help you. He was trying to rob me. The recordings don't lie. This is cruel and vindictive. This is justice. Your son chose to prey on elderly women. Now he gets to face the consequences. Wednesday brought Jake's bail hearing where he tried to paint himself as a caring family member who'd been trapped by a paranoid grandmother. The judge wasn't buying it. Mr. Williams, the evidence suggests a systematic attempt to defraud an elderly family member. Bail is set at $300,000. $300,000 money Jake didn't have. He'd be staying in jail until trial. Thursday brought Margaret with updates that made my morning tea taste even sweeter. The FBI is interested in Jake's case. They think he's part of a multi-state elder fraud ring. How big? Potentially dozens of victims, millions in stolen money. If they can make Jake cooperate, they might shut down the whole operation. Will he talk? Depends on how much prison time he's facing.